You're listening to The Whole Truth, a Resources Rising Stars podcast.
Kingsland Minerals owns the biggest graphite deposit in Australia, the Leyland project in the Northern Territory. Graphite is one of those metals that is dominated, like so many, by China. Virtually all the graphite in the world either is mined in China or processed in China. The US, through Donald Trump, is obviously very keen to get its hands on its own metals, and this is where Kingsland is about to come into its own. The company's just sent off what it calls a bulk sample to Germany for testing. Might sound a bit boring on the surface, but it's a pivotal event for Kingsland. The company will know in the next few months that this graphite is suitable for use in lithium batteries and EVs and the like. Once it ticks that box, it's up and away. The company has a very important major shareholder called Quinbrook Infrastructure Partners. As you'll hear in this episode of the Whole Truth podcast, Quinbrook is a very important part of the process. Quinbrook has its own plans for downstream processing, for making batteries for renewable energy, and of course that all means graphite. Hence they're involved in Kingsland. This is a great episode of the Whole Truth podcast in which Managing Director Richard Maddocks takes us through where the company's at, where it's going to, and why its day is about to come. Richard, you just announced this big deal to send this graphite sample off to Germany. You're pretty hot and sweaty about it. How excited can anyone get about a lump of graphite being sent to Germany for testing?
Well, look, it's a pretty significant advancement for the project. Obviously the work it takes to get a concentrate sample of that size, it took us a long time to get that with all the diamond drilling core and all the work in the lab here that IMO did for us. But
when you took that size, how much did you need to be able to constitute a bulk sample to send to Germany?
Well, it's a minimum of 5 kilograms, which doesn't sound like a lot, but we had to submit about 150 kilograms of diamond drill core, and that went through all the flotation, the crushing, the grinding, the flotation to get that concentrate sample. So it took a few months to get that.
So you end up with a 5 kilo bag
Yep.
of graphite concentrate.
Yep.
And you've sent it to Germany. So why? Why all that effort? If it was that hard, what is it all about?
Well, it's the Pro Graphite in Germany. They're the experts in doing this sort of test work, and they're going to essentially test it for its suitability to be made into purified spherical graphite for batteries, EV batteries and storage batteries.
So you're on the cusp of being able to establish that this Leyland graphite is suitable for use in lithium batteries,
Yep.
EVs and the like.
Mm-hmm.
So they're pretty pivotal tests.
Oh, that's right. It's very important. Obviously, I think most graphite deposits have multiple end product uses for their graphite. Obviously, we're aiming to get most of our graphite, or as much as we can, into the battery market. So it's an important development to test the suitability for that battery market.
So how long is it going to take? When will you know the answer?
Oh, look, I think we were quoted about 18 weeks to finish the work. We'll hopefully get some updates along the way, but you're looking at sort of mid-year, June, July, until we get that sort of all that work done. And they're going to micronize it, which is shaping it and sizing it. Then they spheronize it, which is making the little round particles about 15 microns across. Then they'll purify it, which is getting it up to 99.95% carbon. And then they'll test all of its properties, for its suitability for use in batteries.
Presumably they come back and say, yes, this is good to go, Richard. Your graphite from
yes.
Your graphite from the Northern Territory is perfect for use in lithium batteries and the like. So what happens then?
Well, once we get that confirmation that we can get that end product for use in batteries, at the same time we did some drilling last year and we've nearly finished the upgrade to the resource statement. So we'll get indicated resources with that, and we'll get the end use of the batteries as well. Combine those two, and that's the basis for a scoping study towards the second half of this year.
Right. Now, presumably, again, if you get sample shows it's good, you've got a lot of this stuff, haven't you?
A lot of graphite, you bet we have. Yeah, we've only just scratched the surface. The drilling program only targeted about 600 metres of strike length, and we've got up to 15,000 metres or more of strike length of this graphitic schist. So it's really just scratching the surface, like you said, Paul.
So it's Australia's biggest graphite resource, and as you just said, you've only really drilled out a very small portion of the schist. So we could expect that to grow if you want it to grow, but there's probably not much point, I take it, in establishing any more resource just yet.
Not up front. I think what we've been doing so far has really been testing the concept. Can we produce a graphite concentrate of a saleable grade, to sell as a product, and can we get that concentrate and then convert that into spherical graphite for battery use? Once we confirm those two things and we do a scoping study, which hopefully will indicate that we can get an economic project out of this, then we've got to work out what size the project's going to be. And that can be like a very big one or a very small one.
But scale's not your issue, is it? You've got an abundant resource.
That's right. There's no shortage of graphite. So it's, if you look at our deal we've done with Quinbrook.
You've ticked that box. You've established there is unquestionably scale and then some.
Oh, that's right. The exploration target's up to 1.1 billion tonnes. So it's a significant
So it's a massive resource, the biggest in Australia.
Yep.
The question is it suitable for lithium batteries and the like? Mm-hmm. If you tick that box, you put it into the scoping study and you show that, hey, presto, this is economic.
Yep.
Now, there's a key card in here that we haven't discussed. Your biggest shareholder, Quinbrook?
That's right, yeah.
What is the relevance of Quinbrook? Who is Quinbrook?
Well, Quinbrook is a very large fund. They're based in Brisbane and offices in the UK and the USA as well. They invest in renewable energy and energy transition infrastructure, as the name suggests, the Quinbrook Infrastructure Partners. So they've invested in wind farms, large battery installations, and things like that. So obviously they're looking at more of the upstream end of the sourcing their products there with graphite. So I think they're looking at using a lot of graphite, a lot of batteries which use a lot of graphite. So I think it's just them being prudent. And
so they're getting involved in a bit of vertical integration here.
That's right. Yeah,
they want to ensure that they've got the supply of graphite needed to meet their endeavours down the path.
That's right, yeah, and supply from not just the one source, which right now is China. So it's diversifying the supply chain, basically.
Right. Now, Quinbrook came out the other day and said they've just done a deal with CATL, the big Chinese lithium battery maker.
Well, they're looking at large battery installations in Australia using those, the CATL or CATL as
now my reading of it was that they were promoting this arrangement on the basis that the batteries they're going to build will be about twice the size of the batteries that we're familiar with in Australia.
Oh, they're large installations. That's right. It's a multi-billion-dollar project,
and they're going to need a lot of graphite for those lithium batteries.
Well, those batteries will use a lot of graphite. That's right, and obviously they're a major shareholder. So hopefully we'll be in a position to provide that graphite in the future. Yeah.
Now the issue here, of course, let's look at the market, because the market in graphite is totally dominated by China, isn't it?
Yep, that's right.
Virtually every bit of graphite that goes into a EV, into a Tesla, has either been mined in China or in the very least processed in China.
That's right, yeah. It's out of all of the critical minerals that go into an EV or a battery, graphite's by far the one which is most dominated by the Chinese manufacturing.
So given where Donald Trump's going here and we think he's trying to reduce America's reliance on China, among others, he's obviously, everything he's doing seems to be linking back to the supply of various critical metals and the like.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So can we take it that the US is going to be looking for non-Chinese sources of graphite?
Oh, look, guaranteed. You can see it's happening right now with these deals which are being bandied about with the Ukraine, because the Ukraine's got graphite deposits as well. So they're looking at all of those things, and obviously Australia and where we are, 2 hours drive south of Darwin, it's a great location. So I'd imagine that projects like Leyland will be in their mix.
Because the US doesn't really have much graphite, does it?
Oh, look, there are some graphite deposits in North America. There's not a lot of domestic production at the moment, and limited production of the downstream processed graphite.
When you say North America, are we talking the US or Canada?
US and Canada. I'm combining them. So again, there's how they go forward with their trade relations as well. The US and Canada might impact that as well.
But they obviously need more than just they've got in America.
Oh, that's right. Of course they do. Yeah. Of course they do. There's no doubt. You hear news about EV sales are stuttering or stalling and things like that. But there's no doubt that they will continue to grow into the future. And you combine that with storage batteries, large storage batteries, and also smaller ones on people's solar systems on their houses. There's going to be increased demand for graphite. So there's going to be a lot of graphite needed. And right now it all comes from China. So I think you will find diversification will be the key to that going forward.
Now as well as the battery deal we just spoke about with Quinbrook, Quinbrook's also looking at building other projects in the NT. A part of your arrangement is that they will look at building a processing plant of their own? That's
right, yeah. The deal as it stands now is Leyland, Kingsland will supply flat graphite. We can truck it or rail it up to Darwin, and then Quinbrook will process that into purified spherical graphite, which goes into batteries.
Right.
So that's the arrangement.
So Little Kingsland is becoming a very important piece of a much bigger jigsaw here, isn't it? Particularly in respect to what Quinbrook plans to do. It's they haven't taken a stake in the company and gone through all this trouble just to be an observer.
No, that's right. Look, it's the start of domestic industry producing purified graphite, downstream processing, which is what the aim of all governments want that. Manufacturing wants that. You want downstream processing in Australia. So, working with Quinbrook now is a key to achieving that, based in Darwin.
So can you get Leyland up and running in time to meet Quinbrook's demand? I think it's pretty obvious you're going to have big demand for this graphite from Quinbrook, whether it's to put in their own processing plant, the NT, or other things. So how fast can you get this thing into production?
Well, look, I can't really answer that. We're once we can indicate towards the end of this year we've got a viable project, and that's with a successful scoping study. Once we can demonstrate that, then it's time to push the button on going to full feasibility, and that will require a lot more drilling to upgrade the resource and make it a bit larger, the indicated measured portion of it. A lot more metallurgical test work for the grinding, the crushing, the flotation characteristics, and also a lot more test work to manufacture this spherical graphite. So there's a fair bit of work to do. So I think you'll find that once we achieve that positive scoping study, Kingsland will change a fair bit. The company, there'll be a lot of work to do. It'll be an expansion of personnel, qualified technical people to do that work. So I'm looking forward to being involved in that. So I think you'll find that 2026, 2027 will be extremely busy years for Kingsland.
Do you think the government, the federal government and the various agencies will give you some help with this?
Oh, look, I certainly expect so. The Northern Australia Infrastructure Facility is one. I think we would qualify for those, government loans as well. There's critical minerals projects as well around which we would qualify for government loans and government grants, hopefully, and things like that. So I think what we're proposing, along with Quinbrook, with their downstream processing, is exactly what the government's trying to encourage with a lot of these tax credits as well for critical minerals and a lot of those loan facilities as well. So I've got no doubt that we'll be talking to those sort of people in the near future.
So what happens next? Take us through what we can expect over the next 6 months.
Well, 6 months, so results will come out very shortly. The test work results will come out from Germany, let's say mid-year. In the meantime, we're still putting a few things together for a scoping study. But once we get those two important building blocks, we'll go full bore with the scoping study, and we expect to announce that in the second half of this year. I'd like to think maybe the September quarter, but it might go into the December quarter sometime this year. And that'll be an operation at a study which proves we have got a viable operation. Once we do that, as I said, it'll be full bore ahead.
I mean, for a company with a market cap of what at the moment?
About 10 million at the moment.
So for $10 million, the company owns the biggest graphite resource in Australia. You've got Quinbrook on your register as a strategic shareholder.
Yep.
You've got the arrangement with Quinbrook. Quinbrook in itself has agreements and other plans in place that would suggest that there's going to be a big demand for the Leyland graphite.
Yep.
It's at $10 million. That's a lot for $10 million, isn't it?
Oh, that's right, yeah. And I think as we de-risk this project, and we're doing that progressively, every time we put an announcement out with more metallurgical test work or more drilling and things like that, it de-risks it. I think the market will recognise that, and I think we'll get rewarded for that in the future.
Yeah, right. Richard, it sounds like you've got a busy few months, but the company is right on the cusp, or the project's right on the cusp of being able to show that you're going to be in the box seat.
Yeah,
the planets are lining up for you. Yep. The US clearly wants non-Chinese metals, including graphite. Mm-hmm. You've got plenty of it. It's a case of going through these, as you say, the de-risking process and supplying it to Quinbrook, who will then feed it to those who want it.
That's right, that's the aim.
Yeah, great. Richard, thanks for your time.
No worries, Paul. Great to talk to you.
You've been listening to The Whole Truth, a Resources Rising Stars podcast, produced by Resource Media, hosted by Paul Armstrong for Reed Corporate. Please note that Reed Corporate does not provide investment advice, and investors should seek personalised advice before making any investment decisions.